Hello, everyone. My name is Bryndan Moore. I'm the producer of this incredible series that's meant to illustrate and highlight the potential for careers with the NBA. We are highlighting the careers of Black executives across the league. And the real point of this started off as a tool for really driving incredible HBCU students to the opportunity to work the NBA HBCU fellowship paid internships this summer. And beyond that, the key was really to inspire and inform folks of the opportunities that lie within the NBA that we never see. That has nothing to do with our athleticism and opportunities to really participate on the corporate level in these incredible businesses that are all around our country and even participate all around the world. So we've been really blessed over the past week to invite as guests some incredible talent, people up and down the scale in their career at various NBA teams. And I want to say that none of this would have happened without my guest today. See, there was a conversation before any of this existed that really was the fertile ground for coming up with this series. And this series, which I think will be wildly helpful, which has a very long tail, which will inform students across the years of what's possible. And that very first conversation was with my very good friend and partner in this series, the Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Minnesota Lynx, probably their 2K League and all of the other entities they've got, the guy who's really driving this conversation home on the NBA side, and that's Tru Pettigrew. Tru, thank you so much for joining today.
Oh, man, come on, man. You already know, man. This is my pleasure, man. Like, to get to do this with you, man, is really... It's a joy. I mean, we've known each other for I don't know how long.
Yep.
And we've done a lot of things together. We're friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to get to operate in what I would consider both of our areas of passion, alongside, side by side. At least that's how I see it on my camera. We side
That's
by
right.
side.
That's right.
We're not physically in the same space right now. Proximity. But this is a joy. Seriously, brother.
I agree. And this is what I want to do. We've known each other in various entities and various layers, but I think there's a thread that goes through all of it. So I want you to indulge me in my questions. I'm going to ask you some questions that I probably know the answers to, but I think they're important to get on record and hear. And I also want to go in reverse time order. Like, I want to start with today, and I want to move backwards until we get down to that approachable space by someone who's currently, still in the student phase, so we can inform their decisions and show them one potential path through to reach a destination like where you are in your career today. You good with that?
Okay, no, I'm good with it. Let's go.
Okay, let's start with your current position. What is your official title, and over which organizations in Minneapolis do you have purview over?
Now, I am the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Minnesota Lynx, T-Wolves Gaming, and the Iowa Wolves. So all four of our franchises, our gaming franchise and our G League team in Iowa.
Okay. How do you dumb that down and describe what your weekly or quarterly even responsibilities are? What is specifically and strictly underneath your guidance and direction? What are you responsible for delivering?
So from a kind of a top level, right, 30,000 foot, I am responsible for providing senior level or executive level strategic guidance and direction to ensure we are being inclusive and equitable in every possible way.
Yep.
Right. And so what that means for me on a regular basis is having ongoing dialogue and conversation with the executive leadership team, the ownership, to make sure every choice and decision that we're making, we're looking at it through an equity lens. Mm-hmm. Right. And when I say looking at it through an equity lens, it's making sure we're asking ourselves the question, what I call the equity question. Is the choice or decision we are about to make going to offer an unfair advantage to any specific people or people group? Is it going to provide a disadvantage to any specific people or people group?
Yeah.
And that is internal and external. So that is, I don't want to oversimplify it, but to me, that's really the equity question. It's really that simple, right?
Yep.
And then it's really a matter of, are we fostering in an environment and a culture where every single person that walks through the door feels a sense of belonging? Right? That's the inclusion piece. And are we getting to know everyone in their nuances from every area of or level of diversity, right? That's identity diversity, what we see, what we look like, experiential diversity, lived experiences, and cognitive diversity, thinking styles, the way we approach engaging others. Are we making sure that we are fostering the most inclusive environment possible for everyone to feel a sense of belonging? Right? And then making sure we are embracing the richness of diversity that is available to us.
Right.
So that way we are looking at and really taking a long and hard look at our workforce diversity. You know, not only are we looking at who is there and recognizing, celebrating, and appreciating them, but also looking at who's not there, right?
Right. And why?
And making and why.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's internal and external. But then that's workforce diversity. Then there's fan base diversity. Right? Taking a look at our fan base diversity, who's there and who's not, and why. Does everyone feel a sense of belonging and acceptance when they walk into the Target Center, right? During our games? And then the supplier diversity, right? And look, if we keeping it what do they say? What's a buck? Does that
100?
The right way to say it? 100.
Gucci 100.
Supplier diversity, right? The suppliers that we work with, the vendors that we partner with. And this is a great example of that. Like you and I are working together on this, right? Is making sure we are mindful of diversifying our suppliers and partners. And then externally, making sure we are leveraging our position of influence in this region to address any forms of inequity that may exist, even from a community level, a societal level, right? And any disparities that may exist. And so that's my responsibility as I see it.
Right. And I think there's a couple key things there, one of which is really that is about the business of those organizations. And it really has very little to do with what we see on the basketball court, which I think is a key distinction to make, to say, yes, in the last, let's say, decade or so, we have noticed that the NBA has included gender diversity in the refereeing. That's incredible. There was no reason for women to not be refereeing men's basketball games. However, that's what it was. Yeah, so maybe there's the edge, a point where it appears on the court. But I think the reason I bring it up is to say that there's so much about the business of these organizations that we, probably don't acknowledge. You guys do, but most of us consumers are watching our favorite player run up and down the court, and that's probably very small percentage of what's actually going on to support that entertainment happening.
Right. Yeah. It's not exclusively focused on the players, but it is inclusive of the players, right? We want to make sure they feel a sense of belonging, they feel a sense of value, that they feel recognized for their full selves, and that they are not just being commoditized or commercialized, right? Making sure that they have all of the kind of emphasis points, the focal points that I talked about applies to the players as well. And so it is absolutely inclusive of the players, but it is not exclusive to the players.
Right. Now, before you had this position, I believe you had another position when you entered the organization. Is that right? Has your title changed?
Yeah. It has. My title has changed.
What was that previous title, and how was the work different?
When I first came, that's a good question. When I first came on board, I came on board last season as the Vice President of Player Programs and Diversity and Inclusion. So that was the role in which I entered the organization, the Timberwolves and Lynx organization, with a focus on working with the players and helping them to reach their full potential in every realm and area of life off the court. So it was, working with them to make sure they're the best husbands, fathers, partners, community leaders, in every dimension of life that they had aspirations to reach their potential and have success off the court. The coaches had them covered on the court, right?
Yeah.
But just as human beings, what did they want to be able to accomplish from a holistic standpoint? So working with them in that way, and also working with the organization to make sure we are all the things I just spoke to you about before, with my current role being as inclusive and equitable as we can possibly be.
Right.
And we quickly realized that that's 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. That sounds like it. You're doing double the work, right?
And both deserve a dedication and commitment, because we're talking about transformational work. We're talking about work that it's not transactional at all. This is transformational work that's changing the hearts and minds and the lives of human beings. And we recognize quickly that we need to give both the time and attention that they deserve. And my experience and expertise was better served to be in the role of Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer across all 4 franchises.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I, knowing the work some of the work you've done before, it's an incredible opportunity for you for your talents to be observed. And I also, quite honestly, I hope you work that position into no longer being needed. I hope that your work is so effective that there no longer needs to be a diversity and inclusion officer, because the organization just becomes and lives and breathes, and the fabric of it becomes equitable by nature.
Bro, it's funny you say that, because whenever people ask me, what's the finish line, there's really no finish line for this work, because we're constantly learning and growing and developing, and we should be. But I said, if there were one, right, it would be to put myself out of business.
Right. That's right.
That's what I'm working towards, where there is no longer a need for me to do what I do. But I felt that way prior to coming on board with the Timberwolves and Lynx, because, as you know, I've been doing the work in diversity, equity, and inclusion for years now.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that way, that I want to get to the point where I can put myself out of business, and I will gladly put myself out of business and find something else to do, because that means the purpose has been fulfilled.
That's right.
Right. It's just like, you know what? Hey, babe, I'm going to go sell cars now. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
That's right. You also mentioned to me that 2 years before this position didn't exist, at least in your organization. You want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, that's right. This is the first time that our organization has had a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. This position did not exist until I was asked to fill this role. And so that is humbling in a lot of ways, and I'm proud to be the person who can kind of set the groundwork and the foundation for this role for others that will come after me, that it's been established. And I feel a sense of responsibility for establishing a solid foundation, because without a solid foundation, man, there's a reason the Leaning Tower of Pizza leans.
Yeah.
It was not a solid foundation, quite honestly.
Right.
I mean, people look at it as a tourist attraction, but the reality is cats didn't give it a solid foundation when they first established it.
Right.
And anything that is not established on a solid foundation, over time, it will crumble. Right. And so I take that seriously, that responsibility seriously. But then there's also a part of me that wonders, like, wow, like what took us so long?
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of organizations who don't have a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Someone who can really help the organization understand not only the significance of it, the importance of it, but the purpose of it, right?
Yeah.
Why it exists. And I think the more we can help people understand the significance and the purpose of the role, the more organizations will will take the necessary action steps to establish that role.
Being that
Because
it's
we look at how much division we're experiencing in our society. Like, we need help, bro.
yeah. Being that it's such a new role, and not just for you, but in many organizations, what is the education background that would suffice in giving someone some basic level of understanding of what the needs are and their roles would be in this title? Like, if someone's in college or in grad school right now, I guess not grad school, they already know where they're going. But if someone's entering undergrad and they say, I saw this guy, Tru Pettigrew, I was so inspired by what he said. He's setting the bar for how he's doing his role and for what the change he's making in the world. I'd like to be him one day. What are some of the things that they should study?
Yeah, that is a great question. I didn't go to an HBCU. I went to DeVry University, and I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, right? And so it is not even close to what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But what I tell people, where I thought I was going to be connecting, transistors and wires,
You
right?
connected people.
I am now, right? Now I'm connecting hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's still kind of a fundamental desire to want to make connections and build bridges. And so I think some of the courses that I find myself in areas where I find myself spending a lot of time studying, quite honestly, man, is psychology. I spend a lot of like I'll read articles in Psychology Today, like just the neurological and psychology and understanding of the human mind and how we work, and just human nature, right? Just understanding people and human nature and leadership. I think the areas that I focus on most is human behavior, psychology, and leadership, that I just study, I read, just to help allow myself to be more empathetic to other people's experiences and perspectives, in an effort to be a better bridge builder, and if you think of the purpose of a bridge, right? A bridge exists as a resource to connect people from where they are to where they want to be or need to be, right? To help them cross territories, terrains, waters that are seemingly uncrossable or impassable until you provide that resource to help them understand how to make that connection. I guess there's still some engineering in there, right?
You have no idea, dude. I have a degree and another one in civil engineering, which is about building bridges.
Right.
I'm producing digital content with you, trying to inspire kids to come and do some work. Yeah, it's so funny, but it's the same. I understand that fully, man. So along the way, the work you did prepared you for the work you're doing now. Before we get into the work you did prior to this, how did you get on their radar, or how did they get on your radar as someone who might be, or as for an opportunity that might be a good fit for you?
Yeah, it's what brought us together was unfortunately a tragedy. It was the tragedy of the murder of Mr. George Floyd in May of 2020. And to kind of back up a little to answer your question as to how I got on their radar, I had been doing work as a community bridge builder, if you will, for a number of years, since 2014 to be exact. I started doing the DEI work since in 2012, and really focusing on building bridges across generational divides and generational differences. And in 2014, when Mike Brown was shot and killed in Ferguson, the work kind of went in a very different direction. Like, the trajectory of the work went in a different direction, largely because of some of my own personal frustrations, fears, concerns, and angst for the safety of my own son, Austin, who you know.
Yep.
living in Cary, North Carolina, a relatively affluent, predominantly white community, and having had some bad experiences myself with law enforcement growing up in Baltimore, living in LA, being on the receiving end of excessive force myself, it really created some, what I call now, because I know I can call it what it is, some untreated and unresolved trauma myself from having been on the receiving end of excessive force, thrown to the ground, gun to the head, all of that. I did not want that same thing to happen to my son. And so it led me to walk through the doors of the Cary PD one day and have some conversation about, are my feelings valid? Do I need to be worried about his safety? And that led to a relationship, and a really great relationship that I'm still really good friends with the then chief, former chief now of Cary PD. And it led to me building a program specific to the police department on diversity, equity, and inclusion, some diversity discussions and workshops that seemingly went well, and it spread throughout the region: Cary, Raleigh, Durham, Fayetteville, Fuquay, Varina, Garner, that region in North Carolina. Then it went statewide, then it went national.
Yeah.
And that garnered some notoriety. And so when Mr. Floyd was murdered in May of 2020, some folks on the Timberwolves kind of had heard about me, knew who I was, and they reached out and asked if I would come and speak to the team. And I agreed, and I did a couple of speaking engagements with the team that apparently those went well. And they said, hey, would you be interested in coming in-house and doing this with us on a more full-time basis? Hence the initial role being working with the players.
Right. Yeah. All I hear is purpose. I hear a person who's walking in their purpose, who's solved their own problem. You had an issue that impacted your family, that you wanted to, create safety as much as possible for your own son, and you directly went to solve that problem, and then started solving it for everyone else, which is incredible. And I've been a part of those sessions. I've sat with you.
You have.
With the police, and we've even talked about one of the things that I thought about earlier in our conversation today was one time we were sitting with several police chiefs, and they were talking about building bridges in the community, and there's a very diverse segment of various Asian populations in the area who come for tech work, and they were saying they have difficulty creating inroads in those communities. There's no, let's say, Indian officers on the police force. There was just that's a blind spot they had, or at least a spot that they were having trouble filling. Maybe there are cultural differences there, and the conversations around that I was reminded of those when you were talking about the purpose of DEI and the work you're doing here. Is that there are communities that celebrate and operate different culturally, that may never operate in the police force, or maybe never be on the court, or maybe rarely come to your games, but you're still building an environment that's conducive and creates avenues for participation for everyone, which is fantastic, which I think makes everything stronger, makes us all better.
100%, man. This is the most diverse our society has ever been. And that's going to continue to move in that direction, right? And so as our society and our world grows more and more increasingly diverse, we have to be mindful of that and willing and prepared to embrace that diversity. And just because someone that represents a certain identity diversity is not a part of our organization today, is not a part of our fan base today, doesn't mean they won't walk through those doors tomorrow. Yep. And we want to make sure we are providing an environment that is making them feel as much of a sense of belonging and acceptance as anyone else that's already there.
True indeed. Let's go further back. Before you were doing, before you started doing the work with the police departments and the D&I work you were doing here, what were you doing before that? What was your career?
Oh, man, I was in advertising and marketing for about 20 years, right? And so I was an advertising and marketing executive for about 20 years, had a couple of my own agencies that I was fortunate enough and blessed enough that they were acquired And so I was able to have some success in the advertising and marketing space. So I did that for a lot of years. I think
Now
that's
this,
when we met.
I was about to say, now this brings us full circle. So there is currently in your hometown of Baltimore now a basketball tournament called the CIAA basketball tournament, which historically had been held in
Right.
Charlotte, North Carolina. It's now
Yeah.
been moved to Baltimore. So I don't know what you're going to do
Yeah.
out in Baltimore, if you guys are going out there or what. But you and I, so it's HBCU teams, basketball teams that come from all over the country. They bus in a ton of alumni. They bus in their teams. The whole city of Charlotte at the time, just millions of dollars are coming into to downtown Charlotte for years. And a lot of events are created, official events, unofficial events are around that basketball tournament. And they have a convention center where brands are represented. And the particular year that we met, I was creating a ton of content in a partnership with Ford Motors. And they were big there. We were traveling the country doing stuff for Ford. So serving HBCUs, serving the HBCU brands, which is what I'm still doing. And you were representing, I think, a mobile company brand that you're doing an activation for. And that's where
Yep.
we met.
Yeah.
We
That's
met.
exactly what happened.
We went to dinner. You started making connections. I started building bridges. Next thing you know, we're fast friends.
Yeah, I know. I remember that is exactly where we met. You're right, full HBCU. It was, yep.
That's my
It
point.
was serving the HBCU community. Even then, this was about, man,
Yeah, it's like 15 years ago, maybe more, maybe
15
longer than
years
that.
ago?
Yeah. Now look,
Maybe
that's
more, right?
that's HBCUs and basketball. What are we talking about today? HBCUs
Wow, I
and
didn't even
basketball.
think about that, bro. Yeah, because it was a CIAA.
CIAA, HBCUs and basketball.
That's right.
Which is to the point, if there was a comment on one of our lives that we did earlier this week, my good friend, and apparently I didn't know we had this mutual friend, Georges Labossiere, who...
Oh, yeah, the boss. Absolutely.
He writes on social, on a comment on one of the lives, he said, two of the best in the game working together. What? That's incredible.
Yeah, that's my guy, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my big hope is that somewhere along the line, either a parent or grandparent or aunt or uncle of an HBCU student or an HBCU student along the way sees these videos that we've created this week and says, I never even thought about that. This sounds like this, such a huge opportunity. Let me take action. And I know that the thing is that this fellowship is for the summer. It's paid internships for the summer.
Yep.
I can't overemphasize the importance of internships in my career, and I'm sure it's the same as yours. But I just want to take a second to definitely encourage anyone to apply and stop what you're doing and apply today. If you need the link, you can go to nba.alumniroundup.com. There's a button there for apply. You click it, it'll take you straight to the application page. Or you can scan this QR code on the screen. It'll take you straight to the application page. Do not delay. And I'll tell you, potential applicants, what I tell everyone, especially interns and even my own son. Even if you don't meet the, every single one of the prerequisites, apply. Still apply. The worst case scenario, you get an opportunity to fill out an application fully, get some feedback. Maybe have your mom or dad or aunt look over it, and then you apply again next year. But you have to take action, and action for this needs to happen today. Let's get these applications going. We want the very best represented, so that you guys can go to one of these teams in the league, join one of these internship positions, get paid for the summer, get feedback, and become better career professionals.
Yeah, thank you for that. And please, and I just want to emphasize that apply today. The final day of acceptance of the applications is tomorrow, the 20th.
Yeah.
It's February 20th. So please get your application in. This is a huge opportunity to work with teams in the league across the NBA in areas that you have an interest in, because that's how the process is going to work. Whatever you've indicated, you want to be in technology, you want to be in content development, you want to be in marketing, you want to be in sales, you want to be in corporate partnerships, you want to be diversity and inclusion. Like, that's where you will be placed for your internship. So there is nothing, and you talked about internships, and you and I will talk so much about mentorships and internships. If you believe in studies, and I do, right, that internships and mentorships are the two things that are most closely tied to long-term success in the workforce.
Right.
So please apply today.
Yeah, 100%. I often talk about my own internships. And Tru, I think you and I haven't known each other when we were kids, but I feel like we have a lot of the same instincts and things. I clearly remember I was in 8th grade and I was in study hall. And in the study hall, there's students from every year. So there's seniors in there. And this guy was filling out, okay, this is how old I am. He was filling out an application on paper. And I didn't have any homework left. I was done. So I went over and asked him, what is that? What are you doing? Oh, I'm filling out this application for this internship that's in our hometown. It's paid for the summer. And, it's like it pays better than every other job out here because they're paying you like basically as a young corporate guy instead of a guy who flips burgers. Right.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it. I asked him, I said, dude, can I have that application? Just let me take it right now. I'm going to photocopy it, and then I'm going to fill it out also. And it had on the application where to turn it in. I did exactly that. I photocopied it. I took all his answers off with some, correction tape, photocopied it, filled it out, and I got it. And I interned every year at that place until I changed my major away from what it was. So I interned there from 8th grade through after my freshman year in college, and then switched and got other internships. And what that meant to my career, because that was an internship for like electrical and engineering stuff, which I didn't study, which you did. But what it meant for my career was I had the opportunity every summer to make money that made me happy, right? Money that allowed me to do things when I wasn't working. But more importantly, it allowed me to get feedback from adults who weren't my parents. Because at that age, like I have kids, at that age, kids don't hear their parents. I don't know, you're not there yet. How old is Austin?
Austin's 9.
Yeah, you got a little bit of time. You got a little bit of time. But soon, these kids, sometimes you get to the point where you just, whether you guys realize it or not, you can't hear your parents. So the opportunity to engage with another adult who cares about where you're going, cares about what you're doing, and who will correct you without being, personal, just give you professional correction is huge. And you become evolved. You become a different person. And that makes you better. It makes you a better communicator, makes you a better worker, makes you a better earner, period. So getting some real opportunities
that's
is key.
so important. Yeah. One thing I do want to touch on, and I don't know where we are with time, but you mentioned purpose, and I want to emphasize that, to those that are listening or watching the replay, is I believe I've been fortunate to have whatever achievements, however you want to define that, accomplishments, successes, and I am very grateful for what, the path I've been able to navigate. But I do believe a lot of that, all of that, right? I'll say all of that is because it's all rooted in purpose. It's what I am supposed to be doing with my life. And so that formula for purpose, right? I want to share, and please hear me on this, is we all have in our own internal GPS that will guide us to our purpose. Our job is simply to listen to it. And that GPS are our gifts, our passions, and our service, right? If you are watching this, I'm going to look into this the little hole at the top. That's the camera, right?
That's it.
That's it, right?
That was it.
Right. Okay. I'm going to look right there. All right. So you all have gifts. You are all so gifted. Trust your gifts. You have those gifts for a reason. And we know you all have passions, things that you really care about, things that matter to you, right? But the goal is to find the intersection point between those gifts and those passions. And then that is where you have been called to serve. Whatever it is you do, I don't care what discipline. We talked about marketing, we talked about IT, we talked about sales, we talked about business and analytics and intelligence, whatever it is, you've been called to serve. And what will help you elevate more than anything else is adding value, approaching it with the mindset of how can I best serve others? How can I best serve those around me? How can I best serve the greater good of others? And then that is when you know you're on purpose. And when you are on purpose with whatever it is you do, hear me when I tell you, you cannot. Did he say cannot? Yes, he said you cannot be stopped. It won't happen. So follow that GPS to your purpose, those gifts and those passions and that service. And that will open doors that you never even knew existed.
Truth. There's nothing else left to be said, nothing that I can say to follow that up. I need you all to apply if this fits your purpose. But there are a lot of roles available in different career verticals. If you're in law school, there's a legal internship.
Yeah.
Sales, which I think all of you need to know how to sell. I think it's just a critical skill, life skill to have, like driving a manual transmission. It's learning how to sell because that really involves listening and understanding what a person needs and how that matches up with your offering. Learn how to, just communicate effectively. And every one of these internships at every one of these teams offers you opportunity to get coaching and feedback from a person like Tru, who's a professional in the role. And we want to see you guys succeed. So my name is Bryndan Moore. My guest and partner in this venture is Tru Pettigrew. We want to thank you so much for coming. We want you to apply. And if you have any questions, leave a comment in the video replay, or you can find us on LinkedIn and let us know how we can help you. Okay? Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you, Brandon.